This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Kurt North and we are continuing our coverage of Series 8 of Red Dwarf. This one specifically, Episode 6, which is Pete Part 1, which aired in the UK mark on the 25th of March 1999. Have I got that right? I believe so.
You have. We've covered it, that Americans got it first. And I think I would have been cross at the time if I'd known, but I didn't know, so I wasn't.
I listened to your Swirly Thing alert recently. So
hey, they got Series 8 first?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
How dare they?
Go back and listen to our special Swirly Thing alert on that, because it tells you how and why, and it was basically a mistake.
Ah.
Yes. Swirly Thing alerts came out today at recording time, so this will date this podcast when I eventually get it out. And also, I just wanted to pick up while we're talking about Swirly Thing alert that I am not the sole purpose for the show being so slow in coming out. Thank you, Mark. There are other reasons.
At least I now know you listen to the specials.
That's why I have to listen to the specials, just in case something's said. So as you can hear, Mark Adams is with us, and Matt Latham's thrown his hat in the ring as well. Hello, Matt. How are things?
I am good, thank you very much. My throat is at 50% capacity, but I'm going to trooper on through these next 3 weeks.
Yes, well, I'm going to drink for the next 3 weeks.
Inverted commas.
I'm drinking for the next 3 weeks. And my throat is exactly the same. I'm about 50% with my throat, so Mark's going to have to lead the charge, I think.
My throat is fine, but my sleeping pattern is fucked, so I'm a bit hyper at the moment, so I don't know how good I'm going to be on these episodes.
In other words, he's just using it as an excuse that when we get really boring and he starts snoring.
It's more like I won't let you get a word in edgeways, to be honest with you.
So, Series 8, Matt, what are your thoughts on it? Moving on.
Yeah. I remember liking more of it at the time, but then in the lead up to this, because I was in the last 3, I kind of binged over a weekend, watched the first 4 and then the last 4, and parts of it's individual lines and jokes and memorable moments, I think, work well. I think overall, perhaps the plotting and ambition of perhaps the premise of Series 8 kind of loses sort of the Red Dwarf flavour, and some of it's kind of not, some elements of it are quite nice. Like, I mean, we'll probably talk about in the next 2 episodes that Lucy Hollister, is probably most focused ever time in the show. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely it's definitely kind of lost something, and I think I can't figure out
morality.
Possibly.
That's all Mark's allowed to say for the entirety of this episode.
I mean, because at the time of recording, I think I've not listened to the previous ones you've done, so I'm only going through the reactions from our team's chat. So yeah. I mean, I believe. I don't
like Series 8.
I gathered that. As I was watching it, I think I was watching it going, ooh, and then suddenly went, oh crap, I've internalized Mark.
It's fine. To be fair,
the angel, it's like the angel and the devil that appears on the on your shoulders. I've got no idea which one Mark's going to be, but it's basically a hybrid of the
Probably
two.
both.
I mean, to be fair, since those episodes were recorded, I've looked into the fan base and kind of gathered what people have said and stuff, and there's a wide variation, but the majority of people will actually do take on board exactly what Mark says. So, you know, and I'm quite heartened by that, to be fair. You know what I mean? Because you know, we mess around and joke around about certain people making comments on the podcast and saying, you know, we're too woke and all that kind of thing. But you know, to see that discussion is out there and talking about it, I think is a good thing. So yeah, fair play to a lot of the fans are actually, you know, drawing that out where it's needed. So
I think by series 8 they've worked out who we are, and
no, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying more. Yeah, I'm just saying more for the actual fan base for Series 8 as a fan base. Yeah. So rather than fans of our podcast, because our fan base is incredible, and thank you fans for listening to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will have fucked off ages ago if they don't like woke shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've almost left a couple of times, Mark.
In the middle of recordings.
Yeah.
Flipping
It's like,
it down.
fuck this, man. I'm going. Anyway.
Damn him for pointing out things I don't like that ruin my favourite telly programme.
How dare he? How dare he? Yeah, so, no, I think that's interesting. It is an interesting series, and I do feel, for me personally, that Series 8, well, even like sort of Series 7, I just feel that, and I'll keep going back to this over the next few seasons, that it swings so rapidly over every single series. It's really bizarre. And Matt and I can actually talk with this with a bit of authority, seeing we know 10, 11 and 12, but it does swing. It keeps doing this weird thing of like, oh, we'll do this, and then we'll have this idea, and then we'll have this story element, and then we'll do this, then we'll go back to the basics, then we'll do this. And it's like, it never seems to land, and even Series 7's the same. It doesn't seem to land, and it's really weird. It's really weird. Yeah. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Pete Part 1. Pete? We'll talk about Birdman later. So let's open this up, chaps. So just the first thing I wanted to talk about was the direction and the repeating gag of the walk down the corridors.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And the salute and the wave thing, the ridiculous salute and then just a little wave. Every time I laughed out loud, sat on my own and confused the cat. And as we know by now, this is my gauge of whether or not something's actually funny. If I physically laugh when I'm not with somebody else, that means that I really found it funny. And I am a sucker for a repetitive gag. I mean, I like Stuart Lee, but this is really, really good. Really, really good gag. Made me so happy.
What about you, Matt, generally?
So the gag. So this is what's going to be quite. I've got no idea how you've talked about back in the Red in terms of the structure over how it works over the 3 episodes, because I think, particularly with Pete, I think it was very similar to back in the Red, where it was supposed to be one episode that just outran and over long, and they ended up splitting it in 2. The issue with that and the repeated gags I have with this and next week is that the way it's structured is that it feels like it's supposed to be one episode, and so the repeated gags carry on week in to the next week. So the repeated gag of the walking down the corridor, which in a singular episode will probably be good and building up, but when you've got a 7-day gap in between that, I don't think it works that well. So I'm going to assume that did you watch both of these one after the other in a binge?
No, because I haven't watched the next week's episode. I'm recording in 25 an hour and a half, but carry on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have recently though.
Yeah, I feel like that recurring gag probably doesn't kind of work in that aspect. And like, okay, you've got modern comedy, you've got serialization in terms of kind of recurring gags, recurring motifs through whatever, like US Office with That's What She Said, or like the millions that are in Parks and Rec or whatever. But
can I interrupt there? Purely because I hate you, Matt. I actually hate you.
Why?
Because there was a problem yesterday night, before the last night when I was at work, which meant I stayed on for a couple of hours to help a section out, and this guy came to buy some cigarettes, and he wanted to buy some Super Kings, right? And bearing in mind, I'm high up in the establishment, And he said, I said, no, we don't have Chesterfield. We don't have Chesterfield, whatever. We've got Chesterfield Bright. Oh, Bright will do. It's the size that matters. And I instantly went, yeah. That's what she said. That's the first thing I said. And without even thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, that's a customer. I've just said that to a customer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
I did well. But that's all Matt's fault.
I'm to blame for everything, apparently. So, but yeah, so the point being is that I don't know if what feels like it's structured as a payoff to one episode carries across in another. So yeah, and I mean watching it one after the other kind of helps get that, but then I think trying to separate it as two separate episodes that are split, I don't think the gag works because it feels as if it's a continuing story. And I think like people would have gone to bed since then. The mainstream audience have probably forgotten about that by then, and it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it kind of rebuilds it or works on new ideas. If that makes sense. But that's something I'm probably going to elaborate on part 2. Perhaps in a bit more detail, but
it might be an idea to elaborate that more on part 2.
Yeah.
So, what did you think about this episode, then, Matt?
I'm not a fan of this Pete of the Pete episode. I'm actually not a fan of it. Yeah, and I've not really felt that way this way properly about an episode since at least series 4. It's a very similar, I think, with the whole problem that I hate in that I think they want to do certain ideas, but then they suddenly realise they're restricted by the premise they've set themselves with them being the Canaries. But then they've written a story which is half not based on that, and I mean, not based on that, and it kind of feels like they're kind of trying to do an old school Red Dwarf episode mixed in with new, like the Series 8 premise, and something just doesn't gel well, and it's. Yeah, and it kind of, for a 2-part series, for a story that's stretched over 2 episodes, they kind of neglect half the cast, half the main characters as well, and it just, I don't know, it just doesn't...
So what do you think about this episode, Matt?
Cunt.
So what do you think about this episode,
The first C-bomb
See you in 10 minutes.
me. Yay!
That's probably my first in this whole bloody podcast, I think.
That may actually be the first time that the first swear word wasn't me in the whole 100 plus
No,
episodes.
I think I've sworn before you before. I'm sure I have.
Really?
Yeah.
I do like the word cunt.
Anyway, Mark, what do you think about this episode in general? Then, obviously, with the Hollister stuff aside.
I think it's okay. I like the running gag, like I said. And I've got some notes for later on where I think it's... Yeah, there's some funny gags. I think Matt's got some valid points about it being elongated, but I also think that the cliffhanger was brilliant. I mean, wow, what a cliffhanger. You don't get many cliffhangers in Red Dwarf, and that one works really, really well. But yeah, it's fine. It's not great, but it's fine.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's quite good. But let's talk about it in a bit more depth. So one of the first things that we do get, as you say, is I love that I actually taking aside the actual replaying of the role, I actually really like the camera movement and the way and the actual blocking of the shot, where they do come in, you see them going down the corridor, the turn, they come round and the camera pans across to the left-hand side. And I think the actual panning shots and all I think work really well. The first one with Ackerman, with this truth serum, and he starts talking about the Batman outfit. They seem to have this obsession with superhero clothing and sex.
That was my notes as well, because there was I'll just pop into my Spider-Man outfit. And yeah, they are obsessed with wearing outfits for sex. And I've never got outfits for sex. You get all these people that, like, I don't know, wearing rubber or leather or nappies or whatevs. And I just, if I'm going to have sex with you, I want you naked.
You personally look quite dapper today, Mark. That's what I can say.
Thanks. Thanks.
In your monkey outfit.
I am wearing a monkey onesie. I'm in my home. I'm allowed.
Okay, so you're not going
I'm going out in it.
Well, you were wearing your Tarzan outfit last summer when we recorded for Series 7.
That's true.
On the hottest day of the year when I got COVID, and I'm still recovering now.
I know, right?
But yeah, so what do you think to Ackerman in general? Because I don't think we've really talked about Ackerman. I'll ask Matt that first because he is an interesting character. He's obviously we did talk about his acting chops and where he eventually ended up in like sort of Lost and Lucifer and all the other. What was the? I think it's in is it Game of Thrones or the other one, whatever the new one is. Because I'm not a Game of Thrones fan. But
oh, flipping heck!
What?
Yeah, I just realised who's played him.
It's McTavish.
It's in flipping Outlander.
Highlander. I love Highlander.
Outlander.
I've not heard of Outlander. Can we talk about Highlander?
I've never watched it.
Out.
You've not watched Highlander? It's magnificent.
Well, he's also the soldier in The Constant and Lost.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's yeah, he's been in the Uncharted games as well. Jeez, I didn't realise it was him. Didn't recognise him without his beard.
Yeah, or his eye. But he's extremely nice and he's extremely lovely. he's not having the best of times. They kind of be picking on him because Ackerman's he's really nice, but he wants to help the inmate scum. So what do you think to Ackerman as a character overall so far?
I think as a character, it's the kind of stereotypical, kind of like tough warden, like overly like tough warden with their kind of hinted at kind of soft side that he obviously doesn't have, but everyone else seems to think that they have. More or less a kind of a, I don't want to say cliche, but like he's not the most original prison warden character you've got, but I'm pretty sure this was 99. So we're about season 2 or 3 of Oz at the same time, which was like the first HBO show as well. So prison wardens in drama, prison wardens were probably slightly bigger in pop culture reference as well. So so alongside like Prisoner Cell Block H and at the same time. So it does. I don't know. I don't think he stands out that well.
Okay, Mark.
He's exposition, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got some fun lines, but essentially is a required character. If you're in a prison, you need the antagonist guy in charge. I don't think it's particularly badly done or particularly well done. I think he's just almost a necessity. And I think the guy playing him does the best he can with what he gets and does deliver the lines really well. So I've got no problem with Ackerman as a character. Yeah.
Well, in this, because he's been given that truth serum, they've they spiked his drink effectively, and they'll spike the drink again very, very shortly. So it seems to be a recurring theme.
Yay! Spiking people, yay! Funny.
I think the big thing that kind of got me though was that I can buy. So I think a lot of, not excused, but a lot of Rimmer's actions in this series can be explained to the fact that I think to a point his death humbled him a little. Well, humbled Rimmer's equivalent of humbling, and I think his death kind of changed his output a bit, and like human Rimmer is a massive dickhead that we've seen in this thing. I can probably buy Rimmer kind of spiking the drinks, but Lister at this point, I generally can't buy Lister. Series 1 Lister, yes, but Series 8 Lister pranking and being immature, I don't know, that was the first kind of sticking point for me with this, that I couldn't buy Lister being that immature. I mean, there's a difference between being slobbish that he usually is and like pranking on stuff. I just couldn't buy it.
Yeah, necessarily from the writing, because all of a sudden you've got all these other characters available that it's almost like the constraints of the show has been released too much, that they've gone, oh, look what we can do. You know what I mean? And the more I think about it from that perspective, like, you know, part of its charm is that the fact there was no aliens and, you know, they were alone in space, and you're only going to get things like Gelfs and these random things that happens and the garbage pods of the world and all that type of thing. When you come to 8, you've got this whole cast, and it becomes just a general sitcom, and you can feel that change, and it's almost like someone's been given all the toys that they want, and it's like, well, you haven't had any. And I don't, because obviously Doug Naylor's not like exactly a kid, but he's literally kind of gone, oh, look at this, I can do this, I can try this, I can do this, this is something we couldn't do before, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this, we can do this. And it feels like that a little bit. It feels like, all right, we haven't done this before, let's do it, you know. And it's the constraints of being left, and the reins are off, and that's it. And I think that there's an element of that, because you wouldn't get that from Lister.
No, I completely agree, and that's what kind of, I think that kind of, it put the episode on a kind of a bad start for me.
I think it's a bit of a mess in as much as they go out of their way to reference lots and lots of stuff from previous episodes and series of Red Dwarf, but they haven't acknowledged the character development that was so important and something that we've really loved over the last 8 series. How we've seen them develop into different, better people.
There's a great kind of scene in, I think it's either back in the Red Part 1 or 2, where Lister tries to explain to Rimmer that he's a different person because he's had 5 or 6 years on his own surviving stuff,
and then they ignore it.
And then that Lister vanishes.
Yeah. Well, we talked about recently about Kachansky falling out with Lister, and that's forgotten about the next episode. Just happened, you know. It's like, we're not friends anymore. It's like, well, you are next episode. You know, so there's all the rest of for the rest of the season. So we have the flashback to, I'm sure he says welcome to the tank in the first episode, and in this one it says welcome to floor 13.
Yeah, he says tank.
Or the other way around, whichever way around it is. He says tank, but he says floor 13 in the flashback. So it's interesting that they've kind of changed that a little bit. The cat gets beaten up because he keeps talking, and I've never quite been fond of that joke. It doesn't really. I don't find it particularly that funny, that one. But I don't know what you think. But I wasn't that enamoured with that one.
Yeah, same. I think as the first gag to. For like, oh yeah, it's like your stereotypical kind of strict prison warden gag, that, and then it just carries on and on, and it's I think one of the first moments I think of very something that's in the game back in the Red, where it looks like they've added something to kind of slightly pad things out, which considering on the tongue-tied wiki the amount of deleted scenes and deleted lines, I don't think they could have. I think they could have easily just like cut away from the gag. It's not the stepping on the rake, such a Bob gag.
Oh, you've got that to come, mate.
Yeah.
I watched Back to Earth. That gag is actually in Back to Earth. I haven't watched Back to Earth for years and years. I haven't watched Back to Earth for 3 days. I decided to get it out the DVD box 3 days ago. We'll get there. So we get the basketball game as a challenge, and we've got the prisoners versus the guards. I still hate Crichton's naked arms. I just hate that gag. It's shit. It's not funny. It wasn't funny. It's never been funny. It's just annoying.
Didn't Crichton's Naked Arms headline Glastonbury one year?
I mean, that's a good name for a band.
K&A.
That's the 90s acid house version.
Crichton's Naked Arms.
So they supported EMF, didn't they?
They did.
Brilliant. Unbelievable.
Extraordinary.
It's all right, I guess. Dun, 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 dun.
Also, right, the fact that Viagra was so new, or I don't think it was commercially available at this point, that they didn't call it Viagra, they called it Boing.
The fertility drug.
So I did look this up. Viagra was available in 1999 in the US. it wasn't available in the UK until 2007. So British people wouldn't have heard of Viagra. I wonder whether this was something he thought.
I think we did hear. I remember hearing about it, and it wasn't here. I think it was something that was known.
We were making jokes about it when I was at secondary school.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
Yeah, you'd have like gloves and you'd just not have, and you'd close your fist, but you'd have one finger not in a glove, so that it would be the lone finger, and you just hand your fist there and go, which finger's got Viagra?
Wow.
Oh, man. The things 13-year-olds found
Wow.
funny.
Yeah, I don't think I did that. But anyway, carry on.
No, I didn't do that.
But what I will say, what I did do
childhood.
is I did play basketball in PE at school, right? And I never once tried to head a basketball because basketballs are really, really heavy.
Yeah, that's not wise.
But how did he manage to do that? Because he heads that ball and it goes in the net.
Yeah, there's some actual silky skills. You wonder how many fucking takes they had to have on it, though.
I thought it was absolutely great. I mean, obviously there is certain cuts where you're like, that might have taken a few times. It's the bullet situation with gunmen, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing you can imagine. But the header seemed to be like sort of that. Just seemed to. I reckon that was a complete fluke. I don't know if they did any more of that, but it just seemed to be a complete fluke, that one.
They definitely didn't get the Harlem Globetrotters in. It was just them. And the skill level is way beyond, well, me. So I was very impressed.
I mean, for a non-contact sport, the guards really know how to do the non-contact bit, don't they?
Yeah. There was a lot of bumping. And Rice got picked up, which I thought was a great line, actually, personally. I did. I mean, I'm going out next Thursday. And then eventually the final thing was getting back at Ackerman by climbing up and hitting Ackerman on the head, which, it's fine. I wasn't so au fait with the slapping of the bass kind of music in the background. It didn't really do anything for me. I don't know if he sells it. Seemed to be a very 90s-esque thing to do, have that kind of like porny bass slapping thing going on. Not really for me.
Yeah, same.
It was there. And you're right, it was very 90s.
Yeah. And then finally, Hollister takes the drug, and we come back to the other walk. So we have another walk that comes in, and he rhymes off. And this is what I like about Hollister in this episode in particular, because each of the time, again, going back to the repetitive joke, the jokes are designed that his cadence is the same kind of run through it. So it's like 7 hours, and that's the same cadence every single time they come to it. I wasn't even catching a lift, that kind of thing, which I think it was really, really good.
In the deleted scenes, there was more of Hollister berating him after the basketball, saying, in the effects of line, saying, after he stopped the lift doors from closing, the captain says he got the shuttle train to the all-night hospital and had to pay 2 fares, and that job got deleted.
I've said it before about Hollister in Series 8. He's one of the very few things that I genuinely think is wonderful. And Mac McDonald shines in the role. And I do remember how brilliant I thought Captain Hollister was at the time. What I didn't remember was how integral Kill Crazy was as well. I remembered Hollister being integral to the plots, but not Kill Crazy. But he's got his finger in every fucking pie, Kill Crazy.
He does, yeah. I mean, he tells them about they think that the food is the cloning experiment's gone wrong. In this episode as well. So even though he's not on screen, he's around. So they get offered to spud duties, but they end up back in the cell. Rimmer's playing drafts with himself, and Lister is doing a join the dots, which
Brilliant.
is just fantastic. I think that's what Matt. I think maybe what you're alluding to, the amount of gags that and I've mentioned this in previous episodes. The amount of gags that are in this series is probably why I remember it so fondly, because there's like the carpet burn, there's this joke, there's so many like high points, but there's also so many low points, and it's such a uneven season. But this series makes me laugh out loud more than most in the entire run. But it's just, as I say, it's that bumpiness that's unfortunate for it.
It's the individual jokes, it's the plotting and the character decisions, I think, that let this down, which is a shame, because Yeah, shame, because if they nailed that alongside like the writing and the kind of the punchlines, it could have been. It'd be up there with 6 and like 3 and all that kind of like stuff. But yeah, it's just a bit of a shame, I think. But the individual stuff, I mean, like again, it's the kind of list that it's the same kind of lister that goes, I've never read a book. It's that level of lister, which it doesn't feel, which feels like more in character than the playing the prank stuff. So it's more kind of an innocent, not idiocy, because I don't think that lister's not like dumb or thick or anything. I think it's just like it's either like uncultured or like never had actually. It's like the first time he'd ever touched a Dr. Dot book, I think.
Playful ignorance.
So he didn't know how they work. Yeah, ignorance. I think, because I like that more than like the dumb jokes, because the cat's got them.
Even thinking about this, I mean, I've mentioned this before. There's a couple of things that have come into my head here. The for me, it's becoming more telling, actually, thinking about it. There probably isn't. I'm probably going to contradict myself at some point here, but the moments that the jokes are the funniest are always the Cell moments. They're always the original Red Dwarf moments. It's never really the moments when they've got people in the show. Like, going back to what I was saying before, it tends to be the bunk scenes that are funniest.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. And I think I've always fought for that part of the show, I think, as being like one of the stronger points. And I think, and one of the things that's kind of missed post season 4, I think, where they set up a lot of stuff when it's just Rimmer and Lister, and then it pays off later on.
And you're talking about the gleefully, the gleefully ignorance is like the that's why the houses on the flight path are so cheap. That is exactly that moment. You know, that is exactly him going thing. And what the payoff with that joke as well is like, no, they're not going to be flushing things out and having to run under the umbrella or run to the car because, you know, pieces of shit are coming at you or piss is coming flying out of you. But then it says, they're not going to hear you half a mile up on the toilet. It's like, that is the joke, because it twists what you're expecting. You know what I mean? So things like that, I think, really work well. And even like the fear of skid starts and all of that banter, I think, works really effectively. And this Cell scene, I think, is a highlight of this episode.
I agree. This scene as well has the scutters coming from the top, from the vent at the top. And I think what a wonderful way to use the scutters. I love having the scutters back. They are something that I've always loved about Red Dwarf. And I think it works really, really well that Bob is like a rebellious scutter. Yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, with Bob and Madge. So they said that bringing the scutters back, they worked a lot better, but they still used to malfunction, but not as much as they did in the earlier series. And as someone also who likes, like saying like repetitive humour, what I really like about is long jokes that have a payoff, and the pipe is a long joke that has a great payoff. It's like ding, 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 ding. It goes on forever, and you're going, "Where's this going?"
I remember that.
So
joke.
so funny, and it's his face as well. Craig Charles' face, good face. Enjoyed his face, good face.
And I do like the just the fact that the pay for Bob is payment is WD-40, which just genius. That's the kind of jokes that I like. You know, they're brilliant.
For someone who's got a pet, bribery is the only way you can get a cat to do something. And I love that bribing the scutters with WD-40 is just like bribing a cat with cat treats. I think it made me a little bit warm and fuzzy inside that. I think it was fun. Great fun.
Yeah. So anyway, so Madge can do 0 to 60 in under 10 minutes. And we find out obviously it's the wrong number. So then we move to the potato scene, which even in 1999, this would have looked horrific. Just
you mean the green screen?
No, not the green screen. They stick a computer-generated like horror 90s wallpaper in front of the lens to pretend it's the potato field, which doesn't look like a potato field whatsoever, and totally looks like it's stuck on the lens. It just was like, oh my god, that was awful. And the editing doesn't really work too well in my eyes either, with where Rimmer is clearly being handed off somebody off screen the potatoes, because he's just going like that. He's literally just off screen. I know people can't see this. He's just off screen, just grabbing a potato off maybe someone like Doug or a floor manager or something, just going, and this one, and this one, and this one. And then we get a kind of a Benny Hill sketch. Is there any way I can describe it? I don't know what your thoughts on the actual scene and the idea of the programmable virus.
I think you're right. It looked bad, but I think it was quite a fun concept. I think they didn't quite commit as well as they should have. They wore the bald wigs, but they didn't shave their chests. And that really annoyed me, because the whole thing is that they would have absolutely... Yeah, anyway, that just... It didn't feel like the actors had committed enough to it.
Yeah, I mean...
And when you consider snogging a fucking gigantic mantis, he was all in for that. You'd think he'd shave his chest.
Well, they did go naked to see Hollister in the next scene.
With hair on their chest. They didn't shave their chests.
That is not what I was expecting in this episode. You constantly surprise me, Mark. Constantly surprise me. That's good. So they get 2 months in the hole. Is the end of that, and Hollister unfortunately handshakes Rimmer, which doesn't make any sense, which is great. It's like, oh, you haven't got this off you, have you? Okay, 2 months in the hole. Thanks very much. You've humiliated me now. And then we move into the hall where we see Birdman for the first time. And again, I think this is a lovely scene. I think it works really well. Hey, there's that bloke here sitting next to you. Which that
was very good.
Yeah, really, really good. And the whole 9-year-old joke was really funny as well. I just think this is fantastic. And obviously the great escape with Bob again, coming to the rescue, which just I think works really, really effectively.
I can't remember what the name of the actor is, but his voice and I think the accent as well is that when I was first watching this, I initially thought it was Mike Burns from the British Empire first, or the actor who played Colin.
It's not, but I can see why you thought that too.
Yeah, because at first I was like, "Oh, is it?" And I don't know why, because I would have remembered it wasn't him. But part of me, in my kind of headcanon, I like to think that perhaps in an alternative world, it would have been Mike Burns playing him, I think. But there was like a brief moment where I thought, "Oh, is that Colin?" And that might just be because 2 days ago I'd just been podcasting about the British Empire, and I've still had it fresh in my head.
But as I say, the Birdman. Why do you think it's called that? And there's that whole 9-year-old gag is like, you met him before, have you? It's just there's not many quotable dwarf moments in Series 8 as much as the gags are there. I mean, obviously, kneeling things down to the bone man is one of them.
Both
cheeks, man. She nearly wore them down to the bone. Still one of the funniest moments in Red Dwarf history. Oh man, that is so funny. And I know it's next week, but for me, it's like, he ate me. He's never eaten me before. I say that so much for no apparent reason. Because there's no context. You can't say it in any context, but for some reason it comes to my head. Yeah. But anyway, that's next week. So Bob comes to the rescue, and the time wand has taken effect, because we're going to talk about the time wand shortly. So they're walking around, seeing that the Lister and Rimmer are walking around, and they've seen what's happened here. So we're completing this point of view, which is the reason why I've done it this way. So they're quite wondering what the hell's going on here. And Rimmer mentions about Yvonne Magruder went like this when he tried to kiss her. And Lister takes the table tennis ball. So that's where we kind of leave them before we rejoin them with Kachansky and their story, which I'm going to talk about now. Which is they've, in the meantime, during all of that happening, they've been sent out on a mission where 2 battalion have gone missing, and Kat, Kachansky, and Crichton go onto this ship, And Crichton starts off on a rant about sort of protection and making sure they stick together and stuff. Meanwhile, Kat and Kachansky just go off and do whatever they want. And we end up in this mime scene. So, again, one of the moments for me in this episode that I remember is the screw, ooh, ooh section.
I hated it. I thought that the acting was... no, you could... no.
Oh, there's people that blink in the
like
background. I'm totally...
Yeah.
Oh, it's awful. I'm not saying it isn't.
It's terrible.
But I quite like it because it's terrible. It's weird. It's a weird dichotomy.
How can you like this and not like the tap dancing blue midget? The blue midget was great.
It's not.
No, it's not.
It's awful, Mark. It's awful.
No, it's brilliant. I loved it.
It went on 2 minutes too long.
Reality sucks, man. Reality sucks. But so the fact that where do you come from on this then with this mission that these three are on in the Canary section? Because you mentioned this before, Matt, about the Canaries. So how do you feel about this particular moment?
The kind of concept of the Time Wand, I think, is like very typical Red Dwarf kind of sci-fi concept. Like, so it feels very much like it belongs in like Red Dwarf. I kind of think the acting is bit. I do think it might have been a lot better if I've actually froze the characters.
Have you ever seen Police Squad?
Have I ever seen?
It felt like, I know Police Squad came first, but it felt like Police Squad was inspired by this because it was cack, actual cack.
Yeah, I think the police squad implemented that idea a lot better. I think, but for a totally different kind of trope, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that the characters in the background that are blinking. It's having to try and I suppose it kind of comes down to the finances again, that they're having to do this properly, like what Holly says, ironically, like mime artists. You know, and that's what they're just having.
Yes.
You know, there's no coordination with it. There's nothing that's really holding them to account. It is done live. So, and that's what sometimes it feels like a little bit with this series, because the live audience is back. It does feel a little bit more playish. With the fact of finding the Time Wand though in this, and Crichton plays around with it, they get turned into what Holly says is the entry for the Turkish Eurovision, and then the clothes get changed, and Kachansky's rocking that for me personally, and I think the two kids are wonderful as well.
This whole scene is brilliant, but Holly gags steal it. Every single Holly gag is an absolute 100% banger, and so Norman Lovett consistently complained about not having enough to do, but what he gets to do is always fucking great, and particularly in Series 8.
Yeah, he's like one of the highlights.
Become a dog. Just like, you know, that's what I mean by this how frustrating this series has been to record, because like I said, back in Series 1, when we were doing Series 1, I loved Series 8, and yes, my eyes have been open to things I didn't even think about now, and looking going, oh my god, but there's so much to like about it.
I didn't remember it either. I know. The rewatch horrified me.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be anywhere near as vile as it is, with some incredibly distasteful shit. I had no memory of that, and I hadn't watched it for years. And I guess, yeah, whilst disappointing, you're absolutely right. There's some superb, genuinely funny moments in Series 8.
Yeah. I said the Rover Ostomy and all that kind of thing. What I didn't like, though, was where Crichton hid the Time Wand. It just was like, it's not fun. It wasn't funny. It's obvious. It didn't really work. You know, I wasn't particularly fond of that gag itself. Never seen QPR play away, a football joke, which we haven't had that one for a while. Yeah. We haven't had a football joke for a while.
But then again, I think were QPR still in? We're still in the kind of more the higher end of the. Actually, I don't know where QPR
they
are.
Were in, I think they're in Championship at the moment. QPR.
I've heard the football.
They're the 19th in Championship.
Possibly because they're in the Premier League. They was in the Premier League for its first season for a while. I think there was, but then I think they had something going. Like they went down, I think, in the second or third season. I think this was when I was much more into football.
Well, 99. There wasn't a Premier League, was there?
Yeah, because Premier League was 94.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah,
94 was.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
So it went.
I've got nothing to contribute to this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking there wasn't a championship. That's what I mean. It wasn't Premier League. It wasn't the championships. It was first division. They're in the first division.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were in the first division, and they were 10th. They finished 10th in the first division at that point. So yeah, it's still at this point in '99, they still were like sort of around, and they've always hovered around that first division championship side. They've always been around that.
Yeah. I think QPR are kind of like it's one of those that are not kind of high profile, yet they're one of the football clubs with a kind of unique name. So it's kind of like how Accrington Stanley seems to always keep cropping up whenever they want a football joke, they want a club with a kind of
and isn't he a bastard
name? Yeah.
That's have you seen that, Mark? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no clue.
There's an advert back in the day for milk where it was like Accrington Stanley who
it's what Ian Rush drinks.
Yeah,
it's what Ian Rush drinks.
The kids in prison for murder.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, everything about my childhood is ruined.
Oh yeah, because you posted about this on the we made this Discord, didn't you? Our network Discord, and everyone was like trying to remember with the thing, which. Yeah, because it's the Accrington Stanley thing, which is a tangent I wasn't expecting to go down when I mentioned that.
What a shame. Everything has to get ruined, doesn't it?
Kevin Spain, who delivered the famous line 20 TV ad 34 years ago, given a life sentence with a minimum of 18 years for murder.
Great.
Sorry to spoil that for you.
Wow.
But I think I said that joke and Tony didn't know what I was talking about, did he? I was like, who are they? And he was like, I don't know either, Kurt. I was like, oh my God. I was like, no, Tony, yeah. I was referencing the advert. How can you not know about that advert? Even Mark Adams knows about that advert, and he doesn't enjoy the kickball.
Yeah,
I've heard of football,
but beyond that, like Accrington Stanley's always seems to be the one of those names that football team names because it's so unique, like Crew Alexandra or like always uses a punchline. So QPR is like stands out more, I think. As a gag.
The similar gags were with Tottenham Hotspur. There's no other team called Hotspur, so I think you're onto something there, actually.
Well, they wouldn't get away with that now. Like that gag will probably date because of Spurs are somewhat decent at the moment.
Somewhat decent. They're still not going to win a trophy, though, are they?
Apparently, the Wolves are in the top one. I've heard
the Wolves are in the top one. Liverpool after their striker.
Yeah. My dad's very pleased that the Wolves are in the top one, and he goes every week. And he uses his old man bus pass just to go to the Wolves and doesn't use it for anything else.
Do you not go with him?
So much no. Would you like a side salad of no with your no? Love Pops. Ain't gonna go no football with him.
Fair dues. You could go if you had a time wand because you could just download an hour 90 minutes and be done with, couldn't you? And then you had a nice bonding thing with your father and you haven't watched the football.
I find a way to make the time wand allow me to have sex with myself, and that's what I do with my 90 minutes rather than go to the fucking kickball.
Oh, there we can get into some
now
dodgy.
We're referencing stuff from ages ago on the podcast, like Series 8 does.
Oh man. Dear.
We are the worst.
Would you like to de-age your butt cheeks so we can push them together like a juicy giant peach?
You can. My butt would still make a juicy giant peach. Thank you very much. I'm not that old.
Now, having said that, we have actually accidentally come up to this because Kachansky does say about having a boob job.
She does.
Not now, though, obviously, which I think is a little bit of a play on the fact that in the 90s there would have been like sort of, breast augments and things like that would have been involved. And she's literally just gone, I'm thinking for not now, I'm thinking for more for when things start to go south.
They've kind of gone out of fashion, haven't they? Michelle Visage has had a boob reduction. She took her implants out.
I've never been into them.
I love Michelle Visage.
I'm not
sure who Michelle Visage is.
Fuck's sake. She's like...
I know Jean-Michel Jarre.
She was on Strictly recently. She's the judge from RuPaul's Drag Race that's always on the panel. RuPaul's
I've-
Best Mate.
No, I never
never
watched any of
seen-
those programs.
I've never seen RuPaul.
You haven't watched RuPaul's
I
Drag
know who
Race?
RuPaul
No,
is.
I've
I know
who
who
RuPaul is, yeah.
is.
Get it watched. RuPaul's Drag Race is brilliant. I love it. Maybe I should do a RuPaul's Drag Race podcast. Do you want to do a RuPaul's Drag Race podcast?
No.
And you know how we've got this gimmick where I haven't seen series 10, 11, and 12. You two could come on and do that gimmick of not having seen it before.
I'm currently podcasted
Is
out.
that
on
right?
the
Yeah,
blog,
we've got other podcasts that we need to be doing. Unfortunately, I think me and Matt have got one. I don't know if you know. We never mentioned it. But we're in a
There
podcast
are
together.
also a million fucking RuPaul's Drag Race podcasts. We would get no listeners.
There's only 0 book clubs.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Right, so your podcast, Yellow Jackets one. I don't know why there's not 100 podcasts on that. And Chucky, there's literally one, which is me and Dev.
The Yellow Jackets are starting to pop up now because a lot of people are starting to binge them. A lot of people are binging that first season now.
Yeah, they've suddenly popped up a lot. The Instagram, the No Book Club Instagram account is like once a week gets followed by another Yellow Jackets podcast and has done for the last 8 or 9 weeks. Yeah,
Still only us doing Chucky. All the other ones that have ever happened have folded.
Okay. And that was. I think we'll take that to our grave on one of our podcast reviews, isn't it? Saying it appears to be staying the course. That's on one of our things on the Apple
Amazing.
podcast. Looks like it will stay the course. The course may take till 2057, but
Yeah. How do you read your reviews on Apple Podcasts? I haven't read them for this podcast for Shipwrecked and Comatose, so I think I could if I ever want to upset myself.
I tend to look on Chartable. I think I tend to look on that because I don't have access to Apple Podcasts, so that's how I tend to do it. Anyway, we've gone completely off kilter here.
We have.
So the download the one Kachanski's idea is to download 2 years and they can serve their prison sentence. Kat gets attacked by Baxter, who leaps at Kat in such a way that he is really going to hurt him. Had it not been for the wand, there's obviously they're taking them back to the chicken. Why they brought another chicken back in again after polymorph, where they were trying to move the chicken in the smeg ups. The fact that they thought, I know what will work. Let's bring another chicken in because that worked so well last time. But Baxter doesn't have to smack that other guy. And then we eventually end up with the whole team together. Is there anything you want to talk about before we get into the whole team getting back together with this scene in the what I've called the mess hall, to quote Star Trek Voyager, but nothing really, is it? So we get introduced. The Birdman gets introduced, and we get the little joke about the bird Pete getting all stiff. It's just maybe he's had the halftime juice, which I thought was quite funny. And a callback. And then we've got the thing about Crichton just going, maybe we could bring him back, make him young and strong again. And they make him young and strong again.
So the CGI is ropey as fuck, but the animatronics, that foot, it's fucking great.
I mean, yeah, I've got it on the one monitor here, and as you was talking, that foot just come down, and it's okay. It's not the T-Rex. It's not the T-Rex in Jurassic Park's foot that lands, but I mean, for TV budget, BBC, yeah.
Part of what I read about this was, and again, I actually, to be fair to the team, I actually think it's really good for them and what they're saying about they want you to try and get use the best technologies available, and try and push the boundaries a little bit. It's way, way, way too early to do that, but they try it anyway. And the reason, pretty much, why Dinosaur the reason for it is there was already a computer model already built, so they used the existing computer model.
Oh, okay, that's fascinating.
So the fact that they did that, I think, is actually quite a savvy idea. And that's kind of what spiraled it out, because obviously you've got an already built CGI dinosaur. Why not use it?
Yeah, when was Walking with Dinosaurs?
Way after this, I think.
Yeah, I've got Walking with Dinosaurs on my YouTube because I got it for free.
1999.
Right, okay.
Oh,
First episode was the 4th of October.
Well, Walking with Dinosaurs, I stand corrected.
was
I
after this,
assumed
yeah.
it was after this because it was so much better.
No, it's about 6 months after this episode actually. So
Interesting. Really
The
interesting.
Jurassic Park was 95, 96,
93.
was it?
93.
Really?
It was
That
my,
early?
it was my
30 years.
first like film that I went to see on my own. I was 13.
what was the first film?
Oh
you
no,
went to
sorry,
cinema on
no,
your
that
own to
wasn't
see,
the first.
Mark?
It wasn't the first film on my own. I remember seeing that film. It was the first film I kind of properly remember being like this. My first film on my own was Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country.
Ah,
My first film on my own. I've almost never gone to the cinema on my own. I could probably name you all.
Well, not
I
on
can.
your own, but not with your parents.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I can name you all three of the films I've been to see on my own.
Pink Dwarf,
But,
yes.
No, not Pink Dwarf, but Perfect Blue was quite pornographic. So that one was an anime.
I wanted to go and see. I remember this. This is what that film I went on my own to go and see. Striptease, right?
Dirty Boy.
Right.
Were you on the back row?
Well, no, because it was sold out, and we ended up watching Multiplicity instead.
Oh, right, okay.
I ended up watching Michael Keaton instead. Well, I mean, not quite sure how that worked, but never mind.
no, I think I've seen more films on my own. Like when I had my Cineworld card, it was like, yeah, I'm bored. I'll just pop to the cinema. Yeah, but the first one I remember kind of going on my own to see was The Dark Knight. I think there's been 2 instances where I've been the only person in the cinema watching a film. The first one was Transformers 3.
Great. Did you have a wank because you were bored?
The second was Noel Clarke's 4321, which with like Emma Roberts and Ophelia Lovibond, who I've got a permanent crush on. And then no, Mark, before you ask, I wasn't in the back having a wank either. But in that film, there's the world's most gratuitous lesbian sex scene in it.
Good.
Right. Yeah. And that was the moment that one of the ushers walked in to have a look around, thinking it was empty, to start clearing up popcorn. Right. When this lesbian scene was happening, turned around, saw me on my own.
Wow.
Having a wank here.
Like sinking back in the chair, going, "Oh,
It's a good job you weren't
please
having a
call me
wank
now."
in it, Matt.
I was hoping, no, never. And no, to be fair though, I mean, no one walked in watching Transformers on my own. I probably would have been more embarrassed watching Transformers 3
Having a
on my own
wank.
rather than yeah.
Good.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I've been on my own watching cinema loads of times because I've got a cinema. I run a cinema. So I saw Avengers Endgame at 5 in the morning, ready to go to work at 8. I put it on. So it was
Nice.
like, because it was meant to be showing that midnight that night. So I was like, I've got no time during the day to watch it. So I decided, right, I'm going to go to work at 5 in the morning, spend 3 hours watching it, and then suddenly realised, it's a bit like working on a podcast when you get screeners. Luckily with screeners, you can watch it with other people and maybe talk about it. But when you've watched Avengers Endgame and you've got no one to speak to about it for 24 hours, it's not a good idea. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
It's not good. That's all I'll say.
I have remembered what the first film I was that I saw at the cinema without my mum and dad was. Boringly, Back to the Future Part 3.
Boringly, I was like that.
Well, yeah, it's just...
Oh, do you mean boring as it's not as exciting? It's like more of a common film rather than a boring, exciting one. It's not 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's not a
Noel
weird
Clarke.
one, yeah.
I don't think there's anything else for us to talk about. I think that's it. That's Pete Part 1 done. We've got 2 more
Do you want
episodes to
my,
go.
do you want the stuff I got from the commentary?
Absolutely.
So this is the 50th episode of Red Dwarf, which is interesting.
Yes. Oh yeah.
It's a shame it wasn't good.
It's okay.
They also, so I'd made the notes about they should have shaved their chests, and the actors agree with me. They were watching it themselves and they were like, shit, we should have shaved our chests because they got the bald wigs on. And Birdman is a regular actor, a regular character in the 10%ers. So that's where the actor got the job from.
Right, okay.
And Craig Charles was in one episode of the 10%ers. So we'll see him when we look at that.
Matt, any final thoughts?
I think the final thoughts are probably better when it's perhaps next week when we talk about part 2, because again,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
There's a lot. There
will be logic, absolutely. Okay, so we're doing a 2-parter. Let's not talk about it so much about our socials and stuff. Let's just say thank you and go watch Jurassic Park and enjoy yourself.
Jurassic Park's great.
Don't watch 4, 3, 2, 1.
You should watch Back to the Future Part 3, but you should probably watch Parts 1 and 2 first.
Yeah, you can skip Transformers 3 as well.
And Striptease had Kyle MacLachlan in it, which I didn't realise at the time. And
Perfect Blue was kind of disappointing, really. Watch Princess Mononoke instead if you're going to watch an anime.
Was it Striptease? Was it Striptease or was that Demi Moore? Demi Moore was Striptease, wasn't it? Well, the one I'm thinking of. Showgirls is the one I'm thinking of. Showgirls with ex Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, she got her tits out. I remember that.
Elizabeth Hurley. No, not Elizabeth Hurley. Elizabeth
Berkley.
What's else? Berkeley.
I am not proud of myself for knowing that.
She wasn't even my favourite. Tiffany Amber Thiessen was. She was my favourite.
I mean, mine was, Paul Gaultier, whatever his name was. It wasn't Mark Paul, whatever the fuck. It wasn't Jean Paul Gaultier, was it?
Jean Paul. See,
I'd go with Jean Paul Gaultier, but I'd be thinking about Zach from Saved by the Bell.
All right, okay. Until next week, thank you for joining us, and
art changes over time. This might feel weird to say because the art itself doesn't physically change, but if we agree that art tells us something about the world around us, what happens to that art once the world has changed? This is the question we try to answer on Movieversaries, a film podcast on the We Made This network. I'm the host, Bo Nicholson, and in each episode my guests and I celebrate and re-evaluate films on significant anniversaries. We examine films from all over the world through a critical lens to determine if they stand the test of time by exploring their themes, performances, and techniques. This year, our focus is on movies made in years ending in 3. So far, we've covered the avant-garde classic Meshes of the Afternoon from 1943. On the other end of the spectrum, how does the technical marvel Jurassic Park hold up 30 years later? We also delve into other iconic films of their time, such as King Kong from 1933, 8 1/2 from 1963, and Return of the Jedi from 1983. From European art house to action, comedy, and horror, if a film is celebrating a significant anniversary, we're discussing it. Don't miss out. Subscribe to Movieversaries now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This podcast network.